Hello everyone and welcome to this video. Now today I'm going to be taking a look at this album here. It is by The Pretenders. It's a self-titled debut album. So yes, I'll just be doing the usual thing in this video, giving a bit of background information about the album, then showing you my vinyl copy of it here, and then looking at each of the album songs in detail. So this album was released on the 7th of January in 1980 here in the UK, while in America it came out on the 27th of December in 1979. It's maybe, I think, the only example of an album like what you consider to be both a 70s and an 80s album like out at the same time. So a bit of background about the band. They were formed in 1978 in London after Chrissie Hynde, who was originally from Ohio, moved to London in 1973. She worked as a writer for The NME and had close links with the punk scene, and her talent for music was spotted by Dave Hill, the owner of a independent record label called Anchor Records, and this early lineup of the band like I said, recorded a few demos. However, Hynde decided to select her own musicians for the next sessions, so ended up recruiting Peter Fondon on bass, James Honeymoon Scott on guitar, and Martin Chambers on drums. Initially, the band worked with Nick Lowe, a very highly in-demand record producer and star in his own right. He produced their debut single, a cover of the Kinks song Stop Your Sobbing, which was released in January of 1979. However, Lowe decided not to work with the band because he felt that they were going nowhere. He wasn't too interested in working with them anymore. So for all the follow-up sessions, they used Chris Thomas, who again quite a popular, quite in-demand record producer. He's most famously worked with the Sex Pistols on their album, and overall I would say seemed a better fit for the band. So upon release, this album was a big success. It debuted at #1 here in the UK, staying there for 4 consecutive weeks, while in America it went top 10 and was eventually certified platinum. Critically, it continues to be revered. It was ranked at number 155 on Rolling Stone magazine's 500 Greatest Albums list, while it reached number 20 on Slant magazine's Best 80s Albums lists, and is also considered one of the best debut albums as well. So I won't show you my vinyl copy of it here. This is just a UK original pressing of it there. So classic front cover there. Got the back cover just with the track listed on it. I like the packaging to this. The inner sleeve looks like that. You just got this graphic on one side, and then the other sort of pictures of the band, and also the producer Chris Thomas is there as well. The record itself is on Sire Records, this one. Oh no, this is actually a US pressing, I've just noticed there. They're made in the USA for this copy here of The Pretenders. So I won't go over each of the album tracks in detail. I'll score each track out of 10 and then use those scores to give us a overall percentage marking for the album. Okay, so the album starts off with a song called Precious, which is a hard rocking track. Really kicks things off well on the album. Lyrically, Hynde shows a lot of swagger, and it's a bit vulgar. In places she uses the F words, I get it as well. But certainly it's got a lot of attitude to it, this song. It says it's an energetic, it's a good opener, really much sets the tone for this side of the album. It's just for me, it's not a song which I would maybe play too much by itself, but it is a good rocking track there. So yeah, that one would get an 8 out of 10. Sing when you lost to the run, just ain't no fun. Next one is called The Phone Call, which this song has quite an interesting structure to it. There's a lot of changes in tempo during this song. Basically, the verse of it is kind of just sort of sung. Sounds like it's sort of sung down like a telephone, so it is quite hard to make out the lyrics. And it also doesn't have much of a melody, but the musicianship on this track is excellent. And for me, that's why I would give it an 8 out of 10. It is just, again, it's a interesting but very listenable track at the same time. So that one would get, like I said, an 8 out of 10.
Between my knees, under the bed with my teeth sunk into my.
Next one is called Up the Neck, which I like the sequencing like on this song. It just flows right in like from the last track, and it's got a more kind of twangy guitar sound. There's a bit more sort of 60s vibe to it. Kind of sounds like the Byrds like a little bit, while Hind's vocal is a bit more softer, and the song overall like is a bit more melodic. But then, like, as we go through the track, the energy picks up. Lyrically, again, it's quite sexually charged, like this one as well. She sings like on it, lust turns to anger, a kiss to a slug, something was sticky on your shag rug. So it's quite sort of suggestive, like sort of like, lyrically, but yeah, it is again a really good song. Again, very listenable. So yeah, for me, that one would get a 9 out of 10. Next up is called Tattooed Love Boys, and this one is again another good track. It's quite a punky song. This again, it's quite an intense song. Once again, Hind sort of showing her sort of strong like sexuality like on the track. It is again, it's a good song. Again, it's maybe not one which I would maybe play too much in isolation of the album, but it does keep up the pace. Like, and again, like all like the musicianship on it is excellent because it's got quite a fussy time signature. This, so like, it is quite a hard song to like play along with. But like all like the band like perform really well like on it. So yeah, that one would get an 8 out of 10 from me. Next up now is called Space Invader, which is an instrumental song, and it's maybe a bit of filler, this one, on the album. Basically, the foundation of the track is the bass part, while the guitar kind of comes in a bit later and like ends up sort of taking over the song. Comes a real showcase out for Honeymoon Scott, who plays really intensely, but like I said again, very listenable. Like he is a really great guitarist, like a lot of like energy, a lot of power, but also quite simplistic pieces like what like he's playing as well. The song goes on for like about 2 minutes, and then it just sort of ends like with like these sort of sound effects like from the actual Space Invaders game, like which is where like the title like of it like must come from, sort of like quite like early use of like sampling there. But yeah, an alright track. This again, not what I would really go to in isolation, but good song while it's on the album. Next up is Called The Wait, which is another song which I would say is kind of in the middle, like on the album for me. It is another rocking track, this, again with some blistering guitar work, especially towards the end. Plus I love the way the bass is played, like where like Fondon like so like runs up the neck like on like his guitar, like on like the chorus. It just sounds great. So for me, the musicianship on this, the backing track is great. It's just Chrissie Hynde like on this song. She kind of like lyrically doesn't have much substance, so she's kind of basically just sort of making a lot of kind of funny noises like with like a voice. There's no sort of like real substance like to like the lyrical content of this song, but the musicianship is great and kind of saves the song for me. So yeah, The Wait would get a 7 out of 10 overall. The next song up, which closes off side one, is Stop Your Sobbing, which I've already mentioned, as said was their first single, and it does kind of stick out on this album a little bit. It is like A, the only cover song on the album, and B, the only track produced by Nick Lowe. So it has a kind of sort of almost sounds like his band, like off like the time at Rockpile. Like it's got like very sort of like similar sounds like to like Nick Lowe's solo work, like and sort of like the Rockpile albums. Like the song itself like is an early Kinks song originally on their first album. And like it's also like interesting to know as well that Hind and Ray Davies like would like marry like a few years later, and this was a time like when like the Kinks were getting a lot of attention like from like sort of like the new wave music scene. The Jam had just recently done a single of David Watts, and like then like the Kinks and then like the Pretenders released this like as like their first single. So yeah, like the Kinks are getting like a lot of love like in the late 70s here. And it is a great song to begin with. The song itself is great. And I would say this version is arguably as good as the Kinks version, like I think. And like yeah, like there's just something about it, like what like again, I think it's just the way Hind sings it. It's just a really like good recording. This, like I said, it was released as their first single way back in January of 1979, and it reached number 34 on the charts here and number 65 in America. So yeah, for me, that one would get 9 out of 10. Yeah, it does stick out a bit, but it is a really good song though.
Kid, my only kid, looks so
Okay, and then we start the second side with another single called Kid, which is a great song, this. Lyrically, it's about sort of comforting like a child. She's sort of singing on it, kid, what changed your mood? You've got all sad, so I feel sad too. Again, just the way she sings it, it's just really nice. She can kind of go from like sort of like, again, the very sort of like rocky, sort of almost aggressive, very sort of like sexual songs like on like the first side. So like something like this, a lot more tender, like kind of like mood to it. Very versatile vocalist. And again, the guitar work on it is fantastic. Honeymoon Scott again reminds me a bit like off like the Byrds like on this song, but like has a harder edge to it, like when he needs to like as well. So great song this. Was a single, like I said. It only reached number 33 here in the UK, which is a bit of a shame because I think the song deserved so much better. So yeah, Kid, for me, would get a 10 out of 10. It's a really, really, really great song.
private life drama, baby, leave me out.
Okay, next one up is probably the first sort of real curveball song on the album. It's called Private Life, and this song reminds me a bit of The Police. This one, it's kind of got that sort of like that. It's got that sort of like that light reggae sort of feeling to it, especially like on like the drumming like on this one. Sounds very similar to something like Stuart Copeland like would have played, like and like sort of like the corner seat guitars. It's very sort of, there's a lot of space like on like this song. And it runs for almost 6.5 minutes. This, however, you don't really notice it too much. I think the song actually passes by fairly quickly. Like you just sort of like get like lost in it like a little bit. Like I said, like Honeymoon Scott's guitars are quite minimalistic on it, but they do add a bit of sparkle to the track. And yes, it is a very much a stark contrast from the kind of relentless rock and roll like off the first side. So yeah, overall that one would get a 8 out of 10. And then kind of buddied away on side 2 of the album is the big hit from this album, which is Brass in Pocket, which yeah, very odd place to put your like big like number 1 single like this far on like on the album, but it is a good place for it. It's kind of like there's always something to look forward to like with like this album. And yeah, like apparently like the band themselves like were not fond of the track at all. They didn't want it released like as a single, but I have no idea why. Yes, it's a commercial song. It is definitely the most commercial sounding thing on this album, and it's maybe not representative of them like as a band. They probably like were more like sort of like interested in like the more like rockier stuff. However, it is just a great song. I love the kind of suspended guitar riff over this sort of like this Motown style groove, and again Hines' lyrics about sort of like a woman kind of having sort of confidence like in herself and like sort of like showing her worth like to a man. It's quite a sassy song like lyrically. Like she sings like all like the chorus, "I'm special, so special. I've got to have some of your attention. Give it to me." And it's a great song this, and like I said, that was a big single, reached number 1 here in the UK, the first new number 1 of the 80s, and in America it got to number 14. So yes, an excellent song, an absolute classic from its era, and an easy 10 out of 10.
All of the birds start to sing.
Next song is called Lovers of Today, which is a ballad, this one, and I think a very, very, very good one. Like again, it starts off very sort of quietly, but then as the song sort of goes on, it kind of just grows into a bit of a monster, like I would say. Like so, like again, a lot of quite brooding guitar work again from Honeymoon Scott. While Hyde, like at the start, sort of showing off her kind of softer side vocally, but then as the track develops, her vocals really start to soar, and it kind of points away, like I think, to some like later like Pretenders songs, like where they would sort of do more sort of ballads and stuff. Like whereas like on this album, it is a bit like off like an outlier, this track. But yeah, a great song, and again just for the way like it takes you like on like a bit off a journey, this one. So yeah, that one would get a 9 out of 10.
Every day, every night time.
Okay, and then we've reached the album closer, which is called Mystery Achievement, which this one begins with a kind of pounding drum beat over this strong bass line on top, When I first heard it, it really reminded me of the Stone Roses song, I Am the Resurrection. Again, another very famous album closer, but I do doubt that this song was like any influence like on them. I think it is just like a coincidence that like it like reminded me like of it. Once again, Chrissie Hynde's vocal on the track is great. I love the way it kind of just soars up, and I love again the double tracking like they use like on it. Kind of gives it like a different vibe like during the chorus. I just think it is a great album closer. This just like round things off quite well, and like it does kind of pick on the two sides like of this album. Again, it is poppy, it is catchy, but it also has a bit of muscle to it as well. So yeah, Mystery Achievement would get a 9 out of 10 from me. Okay, so overall this album would score 85%, so I think this is a pretty damn good album here. It is an album though of two halves for me. Certainly the first side rank is a lot more like rock and roll sort of bass, like a bit more punky, little bit sort of harder edge to it, whereas the kind of second side kind of shows them kind of spreading their wings like a little bit more sort of poppy, like a little bit like a few more ballads like on it like as well, and like altogether it is just a great collection of songs here. And it's very interesting, I mean, that they were one of the few bands like from this time who arrived sort of completely fully formed, like I would say. Like again, like quite rare, like where like a lot of like their contemporaries really took like 2 or 3 albums to really show like what they were made of. I'm thinking of like of Blondie and Tom Petty, XTC and The Clash, like, you know, like whereas like Pretenders right off the blocks they made arguably their very best album here. And Chrissie Hynde especially shows off her like sheer sort of like versatility like as a vocalist, being able to really rock really hard like with like the best of them, but then also deliver beautiful ballads and like great pop songs as well. So yeah, it is a great record this from 1980 here. So yeah, hope you have enjoyed my review of it, and I will see you all next time for the next video. Goodbye.